But we had a TV show, you know, not as good as this one. This is quite a professionally run one, but we had a loud and raucous audience, and we invited people there, and the message got out that the situation wasn't the way that city officials described it. The other thing is that the large media, particularly the Star Tribune at that point, and the TV stations, were not really on the same wavelength. They bought completely into what the city officials told them. And it was very difficult to get any kind of a public understanding of what was going on at our level.
Well, I remember, was it a hearing or something, the Star Tribune, there were so many bank robberies in Minneapolis that they stopped reporting them because they were just old news. I mean,
right. But the thing, there's a legitimate political story to be told in what's happening in Minneapolis and cities all around the country, but it's not being told. You know, it's under the radar of the major media. They just have no inkling of what's going on. Let me just tell you one example. Now, I'm an apartment owner. I've been condemned, you know, and actually my house this year was condemned. Here's the placard. You know, we managed to lift that. But what happened was I basically, my niche is that I like to collect stories. I like to talk to people who've been affected by city government, and then I write up their stories. And in that vein, I got connected with a man named Uncle Bill Sanagular. He was an African immigrant, you know, from Africa, who worked in corporate America and then used his money to open a neighborhood grocery store. Well, it was rumored that Jackie Cherryholmes, the president of the city council at one time, owned property nearby, and she did own a home in the neighborhood. There was a shooting that took place a couple blocks away, or somebody with a gun that ran through the neighborhood and terrorized people. They got a block club meeting together, attended by Ryback, the mayor, the council member, Don Samuels, Cherryholmes, and a bunch of other people. And basically, the city officials ordered the inspectors, in this case the fire department, they did the inspection of these groups, to condemn the building, find something wrong with it, you know, help this beleaguered neighborhood get rid of the criminal element that this man, Uncle Bill, who had a neighborhood grocery store, was supposed to be running, you know, some sort of a magnet for criminals. Now,
well, how could, I mean, he obviously can't be responsible for the behavior of just people out on the streets.
No, he can't. And he can't tell people, you know, teenagers, that homeless people, you know, not our type of person. He can't tell them to go away, that he's not going to serve them. There are people that, you know, come in and buy single cigarettes and a can of pop and, you know, not healthy lifestyle, but that's the way it is. And it was a neighborhood institution. So that's what happened. I think 3 days or less than a week after the meeting was held with these high government officials, they posted the placard of condemnation on the man's building, which meant he wasn't actually operating the grocery store, but he owned the building at that time. And he had passed an inspection the previous summer. It cost him $25,000 to do all the work, but he did all the work, and, you know, it was approved. So here we are, half a year, 6 months later. The meeting takes place because somebody a couple blocks away ran down the street with a gun, and they blamed it on him. So what did they do? They said, well, your building is structurally unsound. We have found some sagging joists in this building. You know, it was an older building, but they said, you know, it's not going to work. It's got an unsound foundation. So they condemned the building. They ordered the business owner out within a month. He was a guy from Iraq. You know, a lot of the Middle Eastern people run grocery stores. And the city doesn't like this type of person either. They've run at least 3 or 4 people out of business so far that operate convenience stores. Don Samuels, the council member, I compare with Captain Ahab chasing all these convenience stores.
Well, wasn't one of their excuses for doing that because they weren't selling healthy foods?
Well, there's that. They say that they're selling drug paraphernalia, and by that, the blunts, I don't really understand it. I think it's single cigarettes. You can take the tobacco out and put marijuana in the wrapping and smoke, cigarettes with marijuana. So if you buy a single cigarette in a convenience store, you're selling drug paraphernalia. And there's something else. A lot of kitchen items that are sold at Target and Cub, well, they're sold at the convenience store too. But in that case, they're called drug paraphernalia. And, they're aiding and abetting the drug trade, apparently, by selling things that other stores also sell. So there's a whole variety of excuses that neighborhood associations and the police and others use to say that it's a magnet for crime and that this person is abetting crime. He's profiting from crime by selling single cigarettes and that type of thing. Well, that's what Uncle Bill ran into, and it was sold to another guy named Lenny Chisholm who ran for the city council, and he had a celebration over there, and we went through the building looking for sagging joists or anything. There was nothing. The fire department was manufacturing code violations. This is what we've stooped to.
Weren't there other allegations, though, that they wanted to give the property to Jackie Cherry Homes because there was a development going in and that the property values would skyrocket?
That was one of the other parts of the story, and we never could confirm that Jackie owned the building right next door. Some people, the owner of the building told me that was the case, but there was some other outfit that actually owned it that had it on record. But what you're talking about is UROC. It's the University of Minnesota Outreach Center on Plymouth Avenue near Penn. They were expecting this would be a bonanza, that there'd be all kinds of upscale development related to that. So people were buying up the property, and it was rumored that Jackie was one of the people who had her eye on buildings. So they wanted Uncle Bill out of there. Now, Uncle Bill has diabetes. He's in a wheelchair. He was an honest businessman. I talked to a guy at the post office, for example. I mentioned Uncle Bill. This man grew up in that neighborhood. They called him Bill the Snitch, which to me indicates that he was cooperating with the police in trying to get rid of crime. But, they don't care. You can just vilify the guy and say he's condoning crime, take his property away, and have everybody celebrate. There were 2 others, Wafana's and Big Stop, again owned by Middle Eastern people. They bought buildings that were in trouble with the city, and they checked with the city, about reopening, buying the property, renovating, and then opening. And they asked if there was any problem. Well, I think in both cases they put $100,000 into renovation, and then they found that they couldn't get grocery licenses because Don Samuels was snooping around claiming that there was something wrong with their operation. And it's again the idea of, you see undesirable types of people, young black males hanging around the door, and you think that they're magnets for crime. So you punish the building owner. That's the paradigm of policing. It's called community policing. Doesn't that sound great? We're in touch with the neighborhood. We're doing. No, it's not that way. It's about property acquisition and shifting the blame from the police, who should be out there, observing what's going on and making arrests if appropriate. But they don't care to do that in this city or in St. Paul for that matter.